Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. It's 2:23:23, and it is 9 p.m. Toronto time, and we are doing a show. Didn't make it in yesterday because we had a foot of snow here, and even if you have 1 inch of snow in Toronto, everything grinds to a halt. Even though they do their best to scare people to stay off the roads because they say, oh, it's going to snow, it's going to blow, it's going to be icy, it's going to be just chaos. And it does work. And I am kind of grateful that they do scare everyone off the road because it just means there's more of a chance I can move around a bit because I have to be on the road. And tonight was the end of the storm, but it was freezing rain and ice, and it still was tricky. I'm not as late today, and therefore, because this is Thursday and because this is Frank's night, an ounce of salt per day has made a pledge to be here every Thursday. And even though something strange happened last Thursday, we might find out from Frank. Frank is here today, so I pushed it off an hour, and Frank is in the studio right now, all the way from Geelong, the Corporation of Victoria, in the Corporation of Australia. I guess you're in the Corporation of Geelong as well, probably. All three corporations.
Well, I'm not even sure that Geelong, because there's no third tier of government in Australia officially. So I think councils are, entirely a fiction, as they all are.
Is
But
that
this is
after the British
the
model?
full agenda show tonight.
Say again?
This isn't the agenda show as opposed to the no agenda show.
Right. Do you listen to the No Agenda show?
Only when you post it. I enjoy it though. I think they're great. They're entertaining, aren't they? As well
Very,
as
very much so.
informative. It all happens in a in a way that's easily absorbed.
Well, they are their motto is to deconstruct the media. So therefore, they always go to the current media, which I appreciate because I don't follow the current media. So that's where I get my current media. So they deconstruct it. That's their mission. So half the show is them playing clips. So they're not actually talking; they're clipping, which is good. It's annoying because I find the official mainstream media annoying to listen to, but they do play it. And yeah, I enjoy the show immensely because of that. And you will see that I don't know. I can bring it up on the show notes here. No, one of their problems is they don't have a central website, which is really annoying. I don't think. So I just type in the okay, it's noagendashow.net. And let's see. Okay. I wanted to see if I was a producer, so they didn't get my producership yet. I mail it, so I'm not a producer on this show. Next show, I should be a producer. So heads up, I do sponsor the show. I'm a producer of the show, so because I believe in sponsoring or paying for media that I enjoy and consume, and I want to see further, just like this show, value for value. So there you go. I don't know if this is even their website. I think this is someone else does this website. Can you see the screen now, Frank?
I can see the screen. Yeah.
I don't even think this is their website.
Someone's just cashing in.
No, they have a lot of producers that do stuff for them.
Yeah.
And this doesn't look like their website, but it's what came up. I know that his show notes are on his own site. Unless they redid it. They can't have done it. So now I'm confused. So I'll have to look it up further. Anyway, you have an agenda. So what is it?
Well, I it's subscribed to several what would you call them, quasi constitutional legal type sites. One of them is Constitution Watch, and it did a title search, an Australian business number search for who are the Australian Taxation Office? And, I'm quoting now from their website. This is constitutionwatch.com.au. The Australian Taxation Office are a trading name of a business named Ultimate Holdings for All Company, as provided for within the Australian Government Business Register. But is the ATO a constitutional trading corporation for the purpose of Section 51 of the Constitution? And so on and so on. And it goes through a series of discussions, which I urge people to look at on constitutionwatch.com.au. Who are the Australian Taxation Office? It turns out that the company, the Australian Taxation Office, is nothing more than the trading name of a business called the Ultimate Holding for All Company, and the registered owners through trusts are the Commonwealth Bank of Australia as part of a body corporate, BlackRock Management Australia, Quantum Corporation, Merrill Lynch, New PH Proprietary Limited, Tier 3 Proprietary Limited, Merrill Lynch again, and the Australian Taxation Office holds some of its own stock. So it's the question remains, is there some insider trading thing going on there? The Bank of America owns some. The trustee for Patricia Holdings Trust, the trustee for Zama Khan, Share Call Up Zarina, and Zarina Khan. So it's very interesting. And James Edward Chalmers is also a debtor representative.
Do you have this on your screen? You want to share it?
Yeah, I could share it, yeah.
No, you can share.
I'm just going to remember how to do it.
It sounds more like the IRS, because I don't think in Canada we have a similar setup, but I could be wrong. I just possibly don't know. But yours sounds more like the IRS, which is a private corporation as well. That's why so many Americans don't think, just like a parking ticket from a private corporation, they should have to submit.
Right.
As far as I know.
It's it's just incredible, the level of fraud that goes on.
Okay, I see your screen now.
So if I come here.
Okay, there's some stuff on the screen, yeah.
Who are the Australian Taxation Office, etc. And
this is through your favorite group, Know Your Rights?
Well, this is a guy affiliated with them. He runs a website called constitutionwatch.com.au.
Okay.
But again, very interesting. It's sort of a confirmation of those. If you never submit a tax form or take a tax file number, then really, these guys can't do anything about it. They're a corporation.
Right.
They have no legal standing for unsolicited services, really. It's so where does all the money go? It goes to a private corporation. What happens then? Who do they collect it for? And interestingly, this looks like it's happened very, very recently. 1st of December, 2022.
Okay, I have the link, constitutionwatch.com.au. I put it in today's show notes if anyone wants to look into that further. That'll be show note number 1. And the specific entry you're looking at is, and I'll bring up my screen now because I guess your screen is still showing. And there is my screen. And well, they got all kinds of stuff. Will the real king please stand up?
It's a great site. It's a great website. And I think a lot of it would be applicable to Canada.
I love his slogan. If you can see through the illusion, you are part of the solution.
Yeah.
That means I'm part of the solution.
So it
Yay.
seems.
Who are the Australian Taxation Office? Very, very interesting. This would be a great guy to get on the show.
Horrendous guy to get on the show. Yeah, they're very busy. These guys, they're barely keeping up with their own work.
That's amazing. And BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, they are all corporations that manage money. They manage the funds of you and I, really, any investor at all. Anyone that doesn't want to buy a stock individually buys it through an ETF.
Well, there was a fellow. He sounded like he was an Afghan or something, who did an analysis showing BlackRock and Vanguard and just about everything between them.
But
and he was even hinting that
they manage the funds, but you see, the people that own, they manage funds on behalf. So, for instance, if the Ontario Teachers, which is a huge pension fund, they just hand their money over to BlackRock to invest.
Yeah.
So it's not BlackRock's money. It's for the most part everyone's money. So we are all participating in our own oppression. So anyone that has a pension of any sort, there's a great chance that BlackRock is managing that money. And that is power concentrated in a very small group of people that ultimately run that company. And all they do is, and you can see what they have probably hundreds of ETF funds, and most of the funds are just invested in corporations, everyday corporations that you yourself could directly invest in and not pay a fee. They probably take up to 2 to 3 or 4% of the value of the portfolio, whether they make money or not. So they're just it's just another bank, really. They're just skimming off the top because you're too lazy to go invest directly in companies yourself.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I do own some. I think I do own some BlackRock ETFs.
Yeah.
And I haven't divested myself, but now I know who they are. Now I'm not happy.
You're not happy? You don't have to clap your hands in.
Well, I'm not happy knowing. So, for instance, if I don't know what to invest my money in, you can invest it with a BlackRock ETF fund or Vanguard ETF fund, and they just usually put aside money and invest it in the index, for instance, the index of many millions of different indexes. So I should probably divest myself of them completely.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about this article, about this list of things, is you'll notice the Australian Taxation Office has a number that ends in 556. It's Australian business number.
Okay. I'm looking at the ABN. Oh, right here, 556. Yeah. What does that mean? Is that a code?
Well, if you go down the principal in the holders of that thing, you'll find that the ATO is a holder the same with the same ABN as a holder in itself.
Okay.
How that works, I don't know.
Okay.
There is
some kind of circular ownership going on.
We are really in a muddle, I tell you.
Yeah, you're
and
good.
The other fantastic bit of work that's going on in Australia is, so what has happened in Australia is that land titles are supposed to be under the Constitution managed through the Crown.
Okay.
And now all of the land titles offices around Australia have been privatised.
Right.
And they are owned by a business which is a consortium of the major banks of Australia. There may be others involved.
I think that happened here. They did that when they digitized it.
Now, I'm alerting people in Australia now that the Know Your Rights group, one of the fellows on the Know Your Rights group, is setting up an alternative register for land titles through an office that has existed since the 1300s, and has somehow this relic of being able to register land titles still exists. So for anyone that's interested in that, because it looks like with the privatization of the land titles office, that it's we don't know whether land titles are at risk or not, but at the moment, land titles which are supposedly should be managed, any change of ownership, etc., any fees payable on land titles, that revenue should only go to the Crown. That isn't occurring now, but it's all being managed by a private company. It manages the holding of land titles largely through electronic. There are still some paper titles there, but that is there is an alternative being set up where you can move your land title, and that may free you of the obligation to pay taxes on your land. So you may be free of land taxes as a result of this setting up of this alternative land tax registry. I think they're two very important things for people to be considering now, as there appears to be a whole series of unconstitutional shenanigans being conducted by our putative government. And that's the end of my agenda app. So I just wanted to get those two messages out. They're things of interest to me.
Harmon says, this is very old news, at least to me. Good night, Emma, and Skate and Destroy. Good evening. Okay. I don't know if he's talking about what we're talking about is old news, but that's pretty new news to most people, I think. Corporation Nation. So the whole government.
The land title thing is absolutely red hot new. There'd be very few people that are familiar with it. I'm talking about Australia now, because the office is still being established now. It's for full details, I would urge people to.
Is that for all of Australia? Isn't it done by a state-by-state basis?
One company has managed to. Yes, it is done by state-by-state basis, but each one of them has been privatised to the same company, even though they, say that they're the Victorian Titles Office or the Queensland Titles Office. All of them are managed by, in my understanding, by one company, which is a consortium, which is owned by a consortium of Australian banks.
It says here, the land registry offices in Ontario are for the general public and are only available online. So you have to go to OnLand. So this is something. Oh, yes, TerraNet. TerraNet is the property and registration service for Ontario. TerraNet.
Yeah. So you would need to do something equivalent to this ABN search in Canada for TerraNet.
Who owns TerraNet? Okay, TerraNet is owned by OMERS Infrastructure. And OMERS is Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System. So there you go. That's a pension fund. So that's interesting.
And again, I'm quite certain that land title revenue from land titles is supposed to go to the Crown in Canada. I've got, just given the similarities between Canada and Australia, I'd be very surprised if what's going on there is constitutionally valid.
Mm-hmm. Well, interesting. Mohammed Faradi is the CEO of, I don't know what he is. Okay, this is confusing. He's an employee of TerraNet, but he's the CEO of OneView. Okay, well, that's interesting. I know that the Kevin J. Johnson show, they have a guy named Stefanos who talks all about private land ownership and whatnot. So he always rails against TerraNet. I'm not sure what his biggest beef is. Maybe it's similar to yours.
Well, mine is not so much about complaining about it. Mine is what I'm interested in getting out to people is that it looks like there is a workable solution that's been generated to effectively thwart the takeover of private property using a legitimate titles registration which has the authority of the Crown, because ultimately all these titles derive from the Crown.
Okay, very good.
That's probably the key thing.
All right. Any other topics, or was that the main topic of the night and you got it off your chest?
I've got it off my chest. They're the two main topics. I mean, I've been very interested in watching the explosion of mainstream discussion about vax damage, deaths, so on and so on. It has been, I mean, I thought it was accelerating. I think the last time we spoke a couple of weeks ago, but since then, it's really just become a mainstream item.
All right. On that note, we'll turn to YouTube off so we can talk in depth. If you want to continue watching this on from YouTube, make sure you go to fakotube.com because we're going to talk about vaccines. Yes, we are. The V word.